Today, we're going to talk about something that's, well, it's quietly reshaping our world. We're diving into how viruses make that leap from animals to people. And, more importantly, why it's happening so much more often now. This is really the story of how a pandemic gets made. Okay, let's kick things off with just one number, but it's a big one, 75%. Think about that for a second. 3/4 of all new infectious diseases, the ones that pop up and take us by surprise, they start in animals. So you see, this isn't some rare freak event. It's actually the main way new health threats emerge. And this quote, it just nails the core of what we're talking about. These zoonotic spillovers, as they're called, aren't just random biological accidents. No way. They're becoming, as the quote says, structural features of our changing planet. In other words, they're a direct result of how we're all living today. So that leads to the big question, right? Why? Why is this all happening now? Well, before we can really get into the why, we got to understand the how. All right, so the main character in this whole story is what's called a zoonotic virus. It sounds complicated, but it's pretty simple. It's basically a pathogen that's been hanging out in an animal population, sometimes for thousands of years, just doing its thing. But then it makes the leap, the spillover, and starts infecting humans. So how does a virus actually make that incredible jump? It's not like flipping a switch. It's more like a chain reaction, a whole series of events that have to line up just right. You could even call it a perfect storm, where biology crashes right into human behavior. Let's break this whole pathway down. First, you've got the reservoir presence. The virus is just there. It's circulating harmlessly in its natural host, like a bat, not causing any trouble. Then comes step 2, ecological contact. This is where we show up. As we push into wild areas, we're creating brand new opportunities for us to meet these infected animals. Now, sometimes the virus needs a middleman, an intermediate host. Think of it as a stepping stone, like a civet or a pig, where the virus can adapt a bit before it gets to us. And that leads to the final and most critical step, genetic adaptation. This is the real game changer. It's like a lock and key problem. The virus has to keep mutating until it finally finds the perfect molecular key that lets it unlock and get inside our human cells. And once that happens, a small local spillover can explode into a global crisis. Okay, so let's talk about those reservoirs. And when we do, we have to talk about bats. They are, for lack of a better term, nature's viral hotspots. It's fascinating, actually. Their immune systems are totally unique, probably because of the insane energy they need for flight. It lets them carry all sorts of viruses. We're talking coronaviruses, Ebola, Nipah, without ever getting sick. They're like a living library of viruses, a vast collection of potential threats. But that brings up a really important question, doesn't it? If these viruses have been around for millennia, just chilling in bats and other animals, what's changed? Why are we suddenly seeing these spillovers happen more and more often? And the answer, you might be surprised to hear, has almost nothing to do with the viruses themselves. It has everything to do with us. That's right. We are the driving force here. All of our actions, all around the globe, are smashing the natural barriers that used to keep these viruses contained. It's like we're literally paving superhighways for these pathogens to travel from the wild right to our front door. And you can see the main culprits right here. First, there's habitat loss. Every time we clear a forest or build a new city, we're pushing wildlife into closer contact with people. Then you have global trade. I'm talking about things like wildlife markets, but also just how fast we can all travel now. It creates these perfect routes for a virus to circle the globe in just a matter of hours. And finally, climate change is a huge one. It's completely scrambling ecosystems, forcing animals into new areas, and they're bringing their viruses along for the ride. So you see, this really is the key takeaway. The story isn't about viruses suddenly becoming meaner or more aggressive. No, the real story is about how we are reshaping the entire planet. And in doing so, we're giving these viruses countless new opportunities to find us. We're the ones building the bridges. And if you look back at recent history, you'll see this isn't some new script we're writing. It's a familiar pattern, a recurring theme that we see over and over again in some of the biggest outbreaks we've faced. Just take a look. You've got SARS, which likely went from bats to civet cats in a wildlife market. You've got the Nipah virus, which spilled over from fruit bats to pigs on factory farms. Then there's Ebola, which often emerges through contact with infected wildlife. And of course, COVID-19, which points back to bats and some kind of human exposure or trade. You see the pattern, right? Different virus, different place, but the basic ecological story is exactly the same. It's a natural reservoir, a human activity that acts as an amplifier, and then boom, human infection. So seeing this pattern repeat itself forces us to ask a really tough question. How do we get ready for the next one? Because there will be a next one. And the answer isn't just about having better medicines. It's about a total shift in how we think, moving from just reacting to a crisis to actually preventing it in the first place. But here's the thing. Trying to predict the next pandemic is incredibly hard. Science just doesn't work that way. There are no crystal balls. We have a pretty good idea of which virus families are risky, and we know the kinds of places where a spillover might happen. But what we don't know is which specific virus out of the millions out there is going to be the next to make the jump. And tracing these things back to their exact origin, that's just a hugely complex and difficult scientific puzzle. And that's exactly why the new game plan is all about what we call ecological prevention. It's about getting ahead of the problem. So what does that look like? Well, it means going out and mapping the genomes of viruses in wildlife so we at least know what's out there. It means keeping a close eye on those high-risk spots like markets and farms. And maybe most importantly, it means creating smart policies to limit risky activities and to protect the very habitats that serve as a natural buffer. It's not just medicine, it's public health for the whole planet. And that leaves us with a pretty sobering final thought. Once you understand how all of this works, it becomes clear that the threat of the next pandemic, it's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when, and from where. And our challenge now is to be ready for it.